Welcome to the weekly lesson from Unity Church of Victoria. I'm Vicki Vanderhorst, a licensed Unity teacher. Whether you're a member of our beloved community or just checking us out, we're delighted you found us. If anything you hear doesn't work for you, that's all right. Just simply set it aside. Or, on the other hand, if you hear ideas that resonate with you, take them and apply them and use them to make a positive difference in your life. I hope the lesson you're about to hear will support you on your spiritual journey. Thank you for the warm welcome that you've extended to me. I'm spending this time just to soak up all the love and all the good wishes and all the thoughts that all of you have extended to me, really even since September. And also to let you know that Gabriel Island is not very far away, 2 hours. And Doris has got me on a very short string. So you will be seeing me many, many, many times over the next few months. But you know, when God says move, I move. Usually not so literally. But you know, God and I came to an understanding quite some time ago. I was at Unity Village, actually, finishing up my training and doing my exams to become a licensed Unity teacher. And I had one of those panics in the middle of my last week of exams. And I went to the prayer chapel, and I just said, you know, what am I thinking of? How can I possibly be a licensed Unity teacher? How can I fulfill that role? How can I live the principles so fully? I'm the wrong person. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing here. And luckily, you know, it's wonderful how Spirit works to arrange everything so nicely. There was no one else in the prayer chapel. So I must admit, sometimes my voice got a little loud while I was questioning God's will for my life. And I had lots of tears. But I thought, I'm going to sit here. I'm not leaving this place until I come to some kind of resolution. Until something shifts, I'm not leaving this room. And I spent quite a few hours there. But, you know, the thing about God is that nobody can outweigh God. And nobody, when we're done with our stuff, when we wear ourselves out, guess who is still there, quietly, patiently, waiting for that moment when for me, I said, okay, so what have you got to say? Now you've heard everything that I have to say. And God and I came to an agreement. And what I know about God is that God said, I will support you. I will strengthen you. I will give you everything you need to lead your life. Everything, in all areas, in all aspects of your life, all the time. And my part of the deal was threefold. I'm going to stay awake, and I'm going to listen for that still small voice. I'm going to listen for God. When I hear that voice, I am not going to question it. I'm not going to argue with it. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't hear it, which I've certainly done in my life. I'm not going to ask, well, how and why and when and who and why me. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. And the third thing is I'm going to act on what I've heard, and not act with apprehension or, just like take the step kind of halfway but still, be back here. I'm going to act with what it says in 2 Timothy, with a spirit of power and love. That's what it says. God did not create in us a spirit of timidity. God created within us a spirit of power and love, and that's how I was going to move. So, even though it meant moving out of Victoria and in some ways being further away from my spiritual community, I acted on what came for us a couple weeks ago. But I still consider this my spiritual community. I still consider all of you my spiritual family. This is where I will send my tithe check. This is my home. So today, when I saw what the topic for the talk was, the spiritual community, I thought, perfect, because I am so blessed with having this community, and I'm really happy to just kind of share some of my thoughts about that and what is spiritual community? Like, what is this thing that we call spiritual community? We use the word a lot around here, even more than the word church, actually. Spiritual community. Well, there's lots of different kinds of community that are formed, and we probably belong to many different kinds of communities. For instance, when I was at Unity Village, there was this group of 5 of us that were studying for our exams, and we formed a little community for that week. And, we'd be grilling ourselves, what's the metaphysical meaning of the 7 days of creation? And what are the 12 powers? And what was the first date that the Daily Word was published? And where in the Bible is the first time the followers are called Christians? We're just like study, study, study. It was a community based formed from circumstance and from need. We happened to be in the same place at the same time with the same intention, the same job before us. And so we formed a community for ourselves. And it was a great community. It was powerful, and I'm still in touch with those folks. So a community can also be based on common experiences and interests. And probably many of us belong to some kind of community like that. Perhaps we love to knit. And so we have our knitting community. Perhaps we love to hike. So we have a group that we go hiking or walking with, or we play bridge with, or we, all these different things that we can do. And that's it's a good community, and it's very rewarding and enriching. And it's based, again, on common experience or interest. So then there is something that's quite different called the spiritual community, which calls us to a whole different level of being. Because it is a community based on principles, on spiritual principles. And people even who may not have anything in common, any experiences together, no need, no just happen to, probably we just didn't happen to be here on Sunday morning. It's something way beyond that. It's how Spirit calls us together, how it calls us to be together. And when we base our community on spiritual principles, when we use that as the guiding light, it's a transforming experience. It goes beyond pretty much what any other community can offer to us. That's the beauty of it. It's based in Spirit, not on our humanness, not on our personalities, not on our individuality, not on our physical selves or our surroundings. It's based in the principle that each of us share the nature of God, that we are one in that place that has no place, that we are one in spirit. That's where we act from. That's how we come together. That's what we hold for each other. And spiritual community acts kind of like alchemy, I think. It's a cauldron where we all come together and stuff happens. Stuff like transformation, miracles, growth. Let me take the first one, miracles. Throughout my years at Unity here, mostly here at Unity Church Victoria, I've talked to a lot of people. I've been to a lot of meetings, taught a lot of classes, spent a lot of time with many of you here. And this is what I've heard many times. I've been a spiritual seeker all my life. I've studied, I've read, I've meditated, I've attended workshops. And never before have I been in a place where I can do all those things and be who I am and be with others. This is a miracle. I have heard many of you say this. It's that, when you know that you're a spiritual being and you're trying to follow that path, and you can do it on your own. And then what an incredible experience it is to find that you can actually do it with others. It's a miracle. It's such a gift. Then there's the growth part. It's not always fun. I never said this was always fun. When we come together, we bump into each other, and we experience things that may not, kind of hit us the right way. And I'll speak for myself. There have been many times I'll think, well, that person's not acting out of principle, or they're not being very loving, or being very trustworthy, or, fill in the blank, right? Perhaps, has any of you, had that experience when we come together? It's really easy for us to notice where we're not living up to the principles, where we're not expressing fully and perfectly. But you know, the truth is, if we only surround ourselves with those who agree with us and who share our values and our thoughts, we do not get to practice spiritual principles. It's easy to be loving with your best friend. It's easy to be thoughtful to those who you get along with. That's a no-brainer. I mean, that's like, okay, you know, you're just kind of like still. But for me anyway, I'm always I want to grow more. I want to learn more. I want to learn how to express more of my divinity, of who I am. In all my years, now I can reflect with a little bit of distance, the most difficult people in my life in ministry have been the ones who have taught me the most. And only through my great effort and my willingness to see that am I able to see that. And now I thank God for all those difficult people that came into my life, that rubbed me the wrong way, that really ticked me off, that made me want to quit coming to church. And they have been the greatest gift in my life, because they are the ones who have pushed me to the limit of what I knew and what I experienced. It pushed me right out of my comfort zone. So is spiritual community perfect? Of course not. Of course not. Jesus, on his very first day of ministry, the day after his baptism, the first thing he started to do was to gather people around him. He saw the potential in community. He knew that those people who made that commitment to be part of that community were going to be enriched, blessed, miracles were going to take place. He knew that, not only for them, but for everyone who came in contact with them. They ate together, they walked together, they talked together, they preached together, they were in each other's company way more than we're in each other's company, that's for sure. Did they disagree? Probably. Did they have arguments? Undoubtedly. Did they always act out of their, here they had a great teacher right in front of them. Did they always act that way? No, definitely not. If you read those stories, you see they express anxiety and distrust and anger and fear and all those things that I also experience, and perhaps you have as well. They weren't perfect, but they were committed to living out in the best way that they knew how, to live out of their spiritual principles, to live out of the principles. And there's no doubt that creating spiritual community is one of the most challenging things that human beings can do, because it does call us to live out of our principles of compassion, of tolerance, of faith, of strength, divine strength, of wisdom, intelligence. Ministry is full of opportunities to grow. A wonderful minister that I was having lunch with at Unity Village one time, he said, ministry is so great because when I mess up, I get to practice humility, and they get to practice forgiveness. I know, what a great way of looking at that. I don't know if you remember, when I was here last time, it was Faith Bank Sunday, and I got the order like all mixed up, and I had 3 or 4 people correct me, that I hadn't done things right. I thought, this gives me a chance to practice humility. And hopefully it gives you the opportunity to practice forgiveness. That's how we can be there for each other. And even agreeing on what's a Sunday morning experience can be challenging to a group of people. Because we are all so different, and we all express ourselves so uniquely. There are people who find God or spirit in nature and being outdoors. So even perhaps they only have a weekend off, and spending Sunday morning inside is like, it's a big stretch. And there are those people who love, the huge cathedrals and the big organ and the, 100-people choir in the background and all that kind of stuff. And coming here is probably a bit of a stretch. And then there are those people who really seek God in the stillness by themselves, where it's quiet. And even coming into a room with this many people is a bit of a challenge for them. And yet, here we all are, because we know that there is something greater calling us to be here together. There is something that can be created only when we come together and not in any other form. So not only is something trying to emerge out of us, but there's also a greater power trying to express through us, and can do so only as we are willing to allow that to express. Because we can cut ourselves off from our principles. There's no doubt about it. It's our choice. So if spiritual community is such a challenge, then why bother? Why do we try? We know that we're not going to be perfect. We know that sometimes it's stretching us, that we're going to bump into stuff. Why? Why do we do this together? Because there are incredible blessings that we can only receive through being part of this spiritual community. For one thing, finding a place where others support you in your spiritual practice is an amazing gift. There are so many people on this planet who do not have that place. And we do. You are surrounded. Look around you right now. These are your spiritual support partners. Right here. This is it. This is the place where we practice what we say every morning. Our principles of love, truth, and oneness with God. And how do we practice that? Well, I love the word practice, because what it means is that I'm just going to try my best. You know, when a child learns how to ride a bike to develop a new skill, we don't expect them to jump on the bike and just get on and ride, do we? No. They're going to fall. They're going to get a little bruised, and hopefully someone will be there to be with them and to say, yeah, you fell. You're still a strong person. You're still an able person. Let's be there with each other in this time. Practicing, for myself, I'm practicing tolerance, I'm practicing compassion, I'm practicing love, I'm practicing faith. I know that none of those things are perfect in me. And another wonderful person in my life, and one of the most difficult people in my life at that time, said, Vicki, are you willing to do it imperfectly? It was something that I was going to teach a class, my first class or something. I can't do that. And he said, are you willing to do it imperfectly? And I said, well, actually it was a big question. I couldn't answer it right away. Because what I realized is, no, I don't want to do it imperfectly. I want to do it perfectly. I want to be the best teacher there is. I want to have all my materials, lined up and have great students. I want to do it perfectly. Well, Vicki, not that it can't happen, but probably the first time is not going to be perfect. So am I willing to do it imperfectly? And it was such a release for me, such a drop of a burden off my shoulders. Right. And what better place to practice and to try out something new than in the company of these folks that have come together with the foundation of Spirit. So be willing to practice, to try it. Be willing to practice your tolerance, practice your compassion, practice your patience, knowing that, probably we're going to fall a couple times, but look at what's here for us when we stumble. People who will be there for us when we're not expressing ourselves perfectly, who will talk to us, who will pray with us, who will remind us of the truth of ourselves, who will behold the best in us. That's the miracle. Because we're all practicing all the time. I have no doubt about that. So when we find a place where we get to try our best, to be our best, what a miracle that is. Just a short quote from Hebrews, because many of these letters in the New Testament are to communities, spiritual communities that we're forming. And what this writer says is, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. This is why we're together. Consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. So as we come together on Sunday mornings and classes, at meetings, don't forget this precious thing that we have, this precious place of transformation and miracles called spiritual community. Let us pray. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for all the ways that we have been drawn here together that we're not even aware of. Thank you for our ability to listen to the Spirit moving us and drawing us together, to being here for each other, to seeing the highest and the best in each other, for our ability to practice forgiveness and tolerance when we fall short. And so we see this spiritual community as a great gift, not only to us, but to our larger community, to all of those who come in contact with us. Because as we create this community together and live these spiritual principles, we are changed. We are transformed. And everyone around us can see that. And so in gratitude, we say thank you, Mother, Father, God. Thank you. And amen. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you'd like to know more about us, I invite you to check out our website, unityvictoria.ca, or join us on Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m. as we come together for our weekly service in the Victoria Conservatory of Music's Alex Golden Hall at Quadra and Pandora. God bless and namaste.